Hi everybody today. Thank you so much for joining our local authority network for schools. I'm Suzanne Gibbon. I'm the Let's Go Zero program coordinator. We're hoping you'll find this workshop a sort of learning opportunity, sharing opportunity, and then after the first hour we'll have a time to go out into breakout rooms and talk more freely amongst yourselves. So today we have quite a few speakers for you to hopefully help you sort of absorb a lot of information, go away with some ideas of how you can engage your schools in climate action. So as I said, I'm Suzanne Gibbon from Let's Go Zero. We've then got Cassidy speaking from Lambeth Council about what they are up to. Then we have Katie from Brighton and Hove Council about what they're up to. And then we've got time for Q&A, so please do ask questions in the chat box or Q&A box, and I've got a team with me from Let's Go Zero and Ashton to support with answering questions, or we'll have I'll be chairing the questions to the speakers also. After that initial Q&A to the council staff, we've then got a group of organisations who also support local authorities to engage their schools. So we've got Tony from UKSSN, Bina from Global Action Plan, and Henry from Green Schools Project. They will do a very quick, short introduction to what they're offering. But of course, again, we'll have enough time for questions, and feel free to drop Let's Go Zero an email at any point, and we can forward the questions on and get the answers to you. So just for those who don't really know about Let's Go Zero or aren't very, aware of what we do, so Let's Go Zero is a campaign for all schools, colleges and nurseries across the UK. So that encompasses Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, to sign the campaign to show that they have the intent and ambition to get to zero carbon and call on the government for support and funding to do so. We've got about 2,200 schools now signed up to the campaign, which is absolutely brilliant, which really proves that movement for change is there. So Let's Go Zero is led by Ashton, who I work for, a climate solutions charity, but we're also supported by a coalition of organisations, some of which you can see on the screen here: Global Action Plan, WWF, and so on. And together we support schools to take action. One, by making that big policy change and lobbying government, but the second is through our newsletters and signposting guidance to schools, through competitions and webinars, and free resources and workshops. And we've also got a brilliant climate action advisors scheme that is also starting. And my colleague will drop all these links in the chat as we go along, so you've got access to our website and to the things that we speak about. But please do go on to the letsgozero.org website to find out more. Drop us a message if you've got any questions, or if you would like to talk to a Let's Go Zero team member, then please do drop us an email, and we can set up a one-to-one call. So just like to remind everyone that of the sort of breakdown of today, we'll have our first two speakers from the council, two different councils. We'll have opportunities for Q&A. Then we'll go on to some sustainability organisations and how they support schools and work with local authorities. We'll have a final Q&A. We'll then end the recording there and go into our breakout rooms so that you guys can network and share learning completely freely. I've also got some polls at the end just to get some feedback. So this is the first workshop we've done with local authorities, so we'd really like to see if it's useful, what you would like to see in the future if we run them again, how often you'd run them, we'd like to run them again, and so on. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Cassidy, the Climate Change and Sustainability Programmes and Partnership Lead at Lambeth Council. I will stop presenting now and let Cassidy share her screen.
Great, thanks so much, Susanna. Just get my slides up. Okay, can everyone see those okay? I'm just going to rely on you, Susanna, as I can't see any hands, but Okay, thanks. So as Susanna mentioned, I'm from Lambeth Council, and we launched our Future Fit Schools Network around the kind of middle of last year. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview around our journey, how we've approached it, what are some of the things that we've offered, and what we've accomplished over about the last 6 to 8 months, and then what we've learned going forward. So just to contextualize things a bit, we've, like many other councils, have declared a climate emergency in 2019. We have a corporate carbon reduction plan and a commitment as a council to be net zero by 2030. Then we held in 2021 a citizens assembly, and then moved on to develop a borough-wide climate action plan over 21-22. And that plan is really kind of owned by a collection of large institutions and organizations across our borough, of which our Lambeth School Partnership, which comprises all of our schools in the borough, is a key member. And so on the back of that, we were really looking at what's our offer for schools, how can we really make it relevant and link up what our climate action plan says to the work that schools are doing and make it very tangible and practical. So prior to developing our network, we were already doing quite a lot of work. There's a lot going on in schools around adaptation, so looking at how we can implement green screens in our schools, putting SUDs in our schools. We had a decarbonization project running. Our transport team was working, as I'm sure a number of you have in place, school streets. We've got different kinds of offers around food waste, and then also biodiversity and air quality that we've done with schools, but it was quite disconnected. A lot of teams were contacting schools without necessarily being joined up about what's the bigger picture, how are we working together, along the lines of our PSDS work, so the Public Sector Decarbonization Scheme, which no doubt many of you are also implementing as well. There was a lot of challenges of getting data, and also just getting the bigger picture. Why is this important? How does this benefit the school? And bringing along the wider school community, from the teachers to the premise managers. So why develop a school sustainability network? So I mean, one of the things that's increasingly clear is that amongst teachers, there's a lot of interest. So Pearson report showed that climate change is actually one of the top 5 new subjects that teachers want to actually include in their curriculum. Within our own commitment as a council to be net zero, our schools comprise about 1/3 of our council emissions, so they're a huge source of emissions, and obviously really fantastic group of people to get excited and involved in climate action. They're part of our climate partnership, but there was a bit of support that was needed to kind of really translate how do all these individual projects and things that we're doing actually link up to what the bigger vision is for the borough and the role that schools can play. And as I mentioned before, there was a lot of kind of disconnect across our different departments contacting schools for individual requests. And so this really helped us to think about how do we make sure we have one centralized database of who we're contacting on which topics, and really kind of bringing that all together. And then equally, schools are in very different points in their journey in integrating sustainability. And so there's a real opportunity to kind of share best practices for people to learn how other schools may have approached it, particularly schools that are neighboring next to each other. There's real opportunities around that. And there's also just a lot going on already around in the borough about wanting to connect people up. So these were kind of the core reasons why we were looking to take forward a school network. So we've called it our Future Fit Schools Network, and it's about empowering schools to play their part in reducing emissions and protecting against climate risks in Lambeth. So we're really focusing both on adaptation as well as reducing overall carbon emissions. So our network offers tailored resources and support. So we've been working with Ashton, which has been absolutely amazing in helping us connect schools with individual resources. We've also brought in organizations such as RAFT, Retrofit Action for Tomorrow, which has done a lot of engagement on our schools. We facilitate peer-to-peer learning, so we do termly workshops with our schools, and we also try to signpost resources and grants and opportunities for schools as part of the network. And we've also been running a premise managers engagement network as well. And in return for signing up for the network, what we're asking of our schools is that they set at least 3 climate goals over the year, what they will do within their school, and they start to develop a climate action plan, which sets out how they're going to achieve their broader aims around climate change, and then also that they just get involved in the network. So they turn up to the workshops or participate in some of the events that we hold. So I've just put here some of the resources that we've developed. So earlier I mentioned in Lambeth, we have an existing platform, our Lambeth School Partnerships. And so in addition to promoting the network on our website, we've also been working with Lambeth School Partnerships to make sure all the resources and signups are available on their platform as well. We've developed a schools charter, which really kind of connects more practically how our climate action plan at the borough level then translates to the types of things that they can do in a school. So they're all lined up to our kind of 5 themes of our climate action plan. And then in each series, we set out a series of activities that schools can undertake, example commitments that they might want to put in their own action plans, some interesting facts about why these 5 themes are really important for schools. And then we've showcased good practice around the borough, where we've got case studies of what different schools are doing, and additionally have just tried to collate as many resources, both kind of national resources, and obviously there's a great lineup of speakers here. Some of those resources are featured in our schools resource pack, as well as just local organizations, campaigns, and initiatives that they can get involved in. So that's one of the key tools that we put together early last year to help schools think about their own climate action plans. So as I mentioned, we've done a number of things since the launch of the network. So we've had about 10 schools that have signed up to develop their own climate action plans in their schools, but we typically have about 15 to 20 schools that regularly attend our different termly workshops. Within those, we've also done 4 kind of school-wide engagement programs working with RAFT, and this has been a really kind of fantastic school approach where they've really gone in and involved the faculty, they've involved premise managers, and they've involved students in developing those climate action plans. In each of our termly workshops, we really try to showcase and feature some external speakers, but then we've also brought in a school to speak about what their journey looks like, and then we've typically had some time for people to dive through what are the barriers and challenges and make it very practical. Our premise managers network has also really grown, and we have typically have representation about 30-40 schools at each of those sessions. And I've just included a little quote there, but I think it's been a really valuable learning experience to look at how we engage at multiple levels. So bringing in the premise managers to connect with each other, they've had very different questions than the kind of questions that we get from our teachers or our head teachers. So just going back through what we've learned, as I was mentioning before, I mean, we all know school budgets are under a lot of pressure, and they have got a million things to do on top of everything else that they're doing. So in forming the network, it's really important to have a very clear offer for schools and focus on themes that are of interest to the schools. So when we've started doing our termly workshops, we did an initial launch, which was just trying to introduce the network, but then we focused on identifying what are the areas within the resources and the charters that we've put together that are of most interest for you, whether that is focused on energy savings. A lot of schools have experienced incredibly high energy bills at the moment. So we did one session that was looking at specifically what are some of the tips that you can do around the school to cut your energy usage. And we showcased examples on schools about where we've seen cuts of up to 25% in energy consumption. We've also focused on food waste, which was a big issue and a real important issue for a number of schools. So again, letting it be led by the schools has been really important to kind of getting that buy-in and interest, and then bringing in a really clear offer for, so you're interested in this topic, what can you do, what's available? As I mentioned earlier, the aspect of being able to profile schools that are in different parts of their journey has been really important. So for a school to stand up and say, this is how we developed our climate action plan, and each teacher was then able, or the sustainability lead that's been nominated in that school has been able to speak about what they did, how they approached it, how they got parents involved, how they did what, how they may have secured budget for that. And it was really kind of a powerful way for schools to look more specifically specifically at things that they could do within their schools. And then we've also seen schools start to kind of connect up where they were, we could do joint events together, or we could do joint field trips, or we've got a wall between us, let's put a green screen. And so that has been really fantastic to see. I think another thing is identifying creative ways to support schools with funding projects and initiatives. So one thing that we've been looking into is linking up school projects and trying to have a profile of school projects that link back to our climate action plan that we can then share with contractors that are looking for social value in the borough. So that's one area that we're still kind of working on trying to get done, but we've been able to secure some funding through making that pipeline available. Another thing is just to make it easy for schools to participate. So we've found keeping things kind of short in the evening to an hour and really action focused has been very helpful in getting higher attendance across our workshops, and also getting them involved about what those topics will be, and then producing summaries and write-ups that they can then put into their school newsletters to share what they've learned or what they're doing, making those templates available and as easy for schools as possible. I think the other thing is to find your school champions. We tend to get the most engagement where there's somebody who's really interested, and that may be, premise managers, that may be a head teacher, that might be a teacher who's taken up these issues. It might be the governors. So we've reached out to governors and PTAs as well. And so it's really
just to interject, we're running out of just on timings. We need to move on to Katie shortly, just to summarize and end. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. That was literally my last point was just bringing the council offer together. So that was the end of my slides.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cassidy. Thank you. And please do, everyone, if you've got any questions directly for Cassidy, we'll have time after Katie speaks to have a couple of questions. Thank you so much, Cassidy. I'd like to hand over to Katie now, who's with her colleague Jonathan as well, from Brighton and Hove Council, who will talk about what they've been doing in their local authority area.
Great, thank you, Cassidy, really interesting. So I'm Katie Eberstein. I'm the Brighton and Hove Environmental Education Officer, and I've been working with schools for a long time in the city. And this has been mainly supporting individual teachers and individual classes. But it became really apparent a few years ago when the news about the climate crisis really became very mainstream, and Brighton and Hove City Council declared a climate emergency. And alongside that, obviously with the student strikes in the city, they had a big impact that we needed to shift our approach. And we really needed an approach where school leaders were taking responsibility for this and were leading the climate work throughout their schools. So it also became apparent that that school emissions, just as Cassidy mentioned as well, account for about 1/3 of our city's emissions. So we really knew something, we needed a really important strategic approach to reducing emissions, but also answering student voice. Students were telling us they wanted more input about climate, and we needed to answer this. So alongside 10 schools, we developed Our City, Our World. I'm just going to share my screen. So Our City, Our World, we've got 4 main aims for this strategy. And this is a whole city strategy, and it has to become a whole school project as well. So what we said, we need climate change to be integrated fully into the school curriculum. So we know that there's no space in the curriculum to put additional units. So we wanted schools to look and audit their existing curriculum to make sure that they had the key knowledge and concepts around sustainability within the curriculum, but also to look at the context of the learning so that we would change some of the ways that young people would learn for a more sustainable context. We also looked at working with the council within systems already and with groups within the city to develop school organisational systems to help schools reach carbon neutral by 2030. We also wanted young people to develop a strong connection with nature. We knew that many children in our city had never visited the Downs, which is just behind us, or actually sadly never visited the beach, which is obviously a big part of our city. So we knew that young people had to develop this nature connection in order to develop the other behaviours, sustainability behaviours. And we also knew that eco-anxiety was a big issue, and we knew that we had to provide opportunities for young people to be surrounded by change makers within their school, and giving them opportunities to take positive action for the environment, both in their school, but also within their families and their communities. So I'm going to pass over to Jonathan, who's going to tell you a little bit about how we did this.
Thank you, Katie. If you could move to the next slide. Brilliant. So yeah, I mean, we wanted to move away essentially from the small scale sort of eco committees and one-off projects and things to having a really systematic way of organising a school's approach to becoming sustainable, and to actually developing a very comprehensive curriculum which enables young students, pupils, to actually gain a thorough understanding of climate change, sustainability, and most importantly, how they can change their own behaviours in order to respond to this very, very significant challenge. We see school as the centre of this. Obviously, the school has influence over the local school community, particularly parents and families, and we expect the school, through its work, to also change behaviours within the school within the school families, and also to connect much more closely with local experts and organisations, and then to work the other way, that local experts and organisations and the council as well work much more closely with schools through having a very clear understanding of the needs of schools, but also the targets that the schools are setting. We expect, and this is, signing up to the programme in our City Our World, that it's very much led by the head teacher and the senior leadership team in terms of the passion, the vision, the moral purpose, the ensuring that everybody is engaged, because it should be a collective experience for the whole school community, that everybody understands their roles and responsibilities and is engaged in the programme. We do want them to set up a working group, and we do expect, obviously, the vision to be developed by every member of the school community in terms of what they want to attain over the next few years. We offer a very thorough training programme to the school, starting with a leadership conference with all school business managers, head teachers, deputy heads, etc. We ask them to identify a senior project lead within the school who we train up in carbon literacy, in dealing with eco-anxiety, in curriculum development and assessment. And we expect them to then roll that programme out in their own schools, and the head teachers and deputy heads, senior leadership team, to make sure that there is sufficient time within the training programme for that to happen. We provide them with loads of resources that are available on our website, including the initial surveys of for their community. And as Cassidy mentioned, I mean, the returns, generally it's 98% parents, children, staff who feel that climate change sustainability should be an integral part of the curriculum, but it allows them to develop a baseline and also understand where the strengths and weaknesses are within the community. They then have this massive launch where they almost sort of stick the flag in the stand and say, this is it, this is, we're moving forward as a sustainable school. And then they plan in their curriculum review, and we provide them with the resources to have a look at milestones of learning, conceptual skills and knowledge over a child's progress through school from reception up to year 11. So, what should they know by the end of reception, by the end of year 2, year 4, year 6, and so on. So it can be very rigorous, the curriculum, and that's very, very important afterwards for actually assessing the impact, to understand what you want children to know at certain stages in their school life. We also asked them to actually run fortnightly assemblies. Most of the schools focus on one particular theme. It'll be biodiversity, energy, water, waste and consumption, transport, etc. One of those themes on a termly basis. So it's a rolling programme, 6 themes over 2 years. But those assemblies once a fortnight is where a lot of the work around identifying priorities, whole school action, because we do want the curriculum to move from very much theory to action all the time. It's where that's developed and reviewed. Student voice, really important, that's at the centre of this as well, and they have to develop methodology.
I think you've gone on mute, Jonathan.
Nature, where was I? Nature connection? Yeah. Nature connection, essentially, you know, ensuring that there are systematically, we can keep going back to systematic, but planning in nature connection in a very rigorous way, so that children develop that connection and so that they care and they want to, you know, change the way that they're living, the way the school is operating. And the school itself, we give very detailed carbon neutral audits to them, so whereby they can assess how well they're doing in terms of energy and waste and consumption and watering. And they move through those very, very systematically as a working group and set new targets. And those are the general school actions that the pupils get involved with as well. So it's supposed to be transformational, and we're trying to touch all aspects of the school life, really. Katie.
Great, thank you. So how does this fit within Brighton and Hove City Council? Well, Brighton and Hove has pledged to be carbon neutral by 2030, and they want this agenda to be owned by all departments. It's not just something that is prioritised by the Sustainability Department. It felt very important that this project sat within our Education Department, which is Families, Children and Learning, but has a strong influence from many of the other council departments. So we're working really closely with the circular economy team, the transport, the food team, public health. There's a lot of links with public health, and obviously the countryside team as well. Really strong links with that. We've also got a really strong community of voluntary groups within the city, and it's really important that we're the sort of vessel that enables them to link up with schools.
So we've got now, we started off with 10 pilot schools, we're now up to 40 primary, and we've got a secondary group starting as well now. We're working differently with the secondary schools, into very much around student voice and student leadership there, because, you know, you obviously got the potential there given their age and their understanding. We have one particular school where they've got over 100 climate leaders now within the school, and that's the sort of model that we want to roll out across all our secondary schools for a sustainable future, it's called. With the schools themselves that we're working with in terms of impact, you can now clearly see the changes in the curriculum, the changes in behaviours. We talk about schools looking at life through a green lens. Is it green? Could it be greener? And it's that sort of, alongside the planned approach, there is very much a kind of organic development now as schools begin to become sustainable institutions. They just begin to think in that way. We have given them a very consistent approach. Everybody climate action plans in the same way in terms of how they develop their improvements. We have lots of really positive case studies now, and obviously national interest as well in what we're doing and the framework that we've developed, because we do think it can be rolled out extensively. We're obviously now touching on working with the university and their initial teacher education, because we realise we need to get in there before these teachers arrive in schools and ensure that they've got their understanding that they can bring to schools. And we obviously realise that we need some very rigorous impact studies of it, so we're working closely with the UAE and Winchester as well, and we're beginning to share, as I say, with other local authorities and MATs. Katie.
Great, and we'd just like to sort of finish off by just saying that we've been on this journey for nearly 2 years now, and we've adapted and developed the process with schools, and we've done a lot of learning. And we now feel we're at the point that we've actually got quite a strong process and approach that we're really happy to share with other local authorities. So please do get in touch if you're interested to hear a little bit more about what we've done and how we might be able to support you. We've got a strong framework which we're willing to share, as well as a training programme, and then plenty of resources. So you're very welcome to look on our website, ourcityourworld.co.uk. Some of this work is password protected, but obviously if we were working with you, we'd be able to share this with you. What we're asking schools in the city to do is, when they create resources to work alongside the programme, if they could send them to us, and then we will put them on the website. So we're actually developing this really nice library of activities and opportunities within the project. I think, you know, for this to work in your local authority, there does need to be a designated coordinator that would be able to work on this for at least 1 day a week. So that's what we would be asking for you, but we're really happy to share what we've learned so far, and hope this approach has been of interest.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Katie and Jonathan. That is absolutely fantastic. And Cassidy, I've seen you've been answering loads of questions in the chat box. And just for people online, I think what I'll do is collate all the questions and then share them around in our follow-up email afterwards. But just before we move on to our next set of presenters, just to ask you one question, maybe Katie or Jonathan or actually Anne Cassidy, is how much funding and dedicated staff time are local authorities putting into climate action work in schools? And that's from Bobby Hughes.
Yeah, shall I start on that one? I think we were, really lucky that we had quite a nice injection of money from our Green Council that we've had up until very recently. So we used that money to work with schools to co-develop the approach. So we spent a significant amount of time mainly releasing teachers and paying for supply cover so we could work with schools to develop this approach. Obviously now our approach is much stronger. We've got a lot more resources. So what we're offering schools is 2 or 3 days supply cover for the training. So as mentioned before, they might have 1 day supply cover to attend a leadership conference, a Leading for Sustainability. We do a half day on climate literacy, we do a half day on eco-anxiety and a full day on curriculum development. But where we are at the moment, potentially we'll be reducing the amount of time that schools will need to spend because we've got so many resources now prepared and developed. And I guess in terms of my time, I'm working 3 days a week and Jonathan about 1 day a week.
Yeah, and I guess then for us at Lambeth, it's probably not we don't have a dedicated person that does it. So it's kind of been a part of my job. I have another colleague who's also been leading. So I'd say she probably spends about a quarter of her time on that. And then we look at trying to build it into any projects that we have. So then, what kinds of funding that we can already use to kind of build that in. But it is kind of at the moment still trying to pull different sources together and resources to make it happen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Katie and Cassidy. And I feel that having you two speak is really great because you can see the different approaches that a local authority can take to engaging schools. And so I've seen lots of questions in the chat and I'm really sorry we wouldn't have time to answer them all, but I will share around answers in the follow-up email, and please do drop us an email if you have any follow-up questions that I can then pass on to our wonderful presenters. But thank you so much, Cassidy, Katie and Jonathan for presenting. So I just want to, before we go out into breakout rooms and you guys can have a chance to share a bit more and ask further questions. We at Let's Go Zero work as a coalition of organisations, but we also work with, a huge variety of sustainability organisations out there. So I'd like to invite Bina and Tony on to present from Global Action Plan to present about Transform Our World and UK SSN and about how they support schools and local authorities to take climate action.
Hi everyone, my name's Bina and my colleague Tony's also here, and we're both from Global Action Plan, which is an environmental charity, and we're here to talk to you about 2 pieces of our work that we're doing at the moment, supporting educators, local authorities and young people in their journey towards being more sustainable. I'm going to talk first of all for a couple of minutes about Transform Our World, and then I'll pass over to Tony to talk about the UK School Sustainability Network. But Transform Our World is essentially an online collaborative hub. We have over 6,000 registered educators from across the UK and beyond. And the idea of Transform Our World was that it was launched in 2019 to be an online free platform for educators, young people and other people working in the education space, so organisations and collaborative partners, to share the work that they're doing in this space so that it's a one-stop shop, so that educators primarily can access resources, tools and programmes that might support them in their teaching and learning and their journey towards sustainability as schools. Could you go on to the next slide, please, Tony? Thanks. So as part of Transform Our World, we offer a range of different things. We have resources. Most of these resources are from our collaborative partners, so organisations working in this space who are creating resources that educators and young people can use within their curriculum. We also host links to programmes. So, for instance, Let's Go Zero is one of our partners, and we would promote their programme and their campaign for schools to be involved in as an example of some of the work that we do to promote other people's work. We also offer events for teachers and young people. Primarily, we run an annual youth summit, which has around 25,000 young people engaging in it online. Again, all of these things are free for educators and young people. And I could talk all day about all the things that Transform Our World does. I'd really encourage you to go and have a look at the website. But today I just wanted to talk about one tool that we have as part of our site, which may be of help to you as local authorities, your schools, and potentially thinking about your journeys towards being more sustainable. So our Schools Climate Action Planner launched in 2021. We worked with Greater Manchester Combined Authority to pilot this tool, and the idea is that it's a free, easy to use online tool to help schools identify their actions, what they're already doing in their journey towards sustainability, but also thinking about what other things that they could do. There's a video that we'll post in the chat, so you can in your own time have a look at how the tool looks and how it runs. But essentially what the tool asks you to do is answer a set number of questions around your school. So as an educator, as a head teacher, as a sustainability lead in your school, you're asked a set of questions around the amount of money you might have to invest in sustainability, around your site, around your energy, around the sort of demographics of your school, things like that, that will then create a really easy to use set of actions that you can then implement within your school, whether you're doing them already or you might want to do them in the future. And if you could go on to the next slide, please, Tony. The tool then prioritises the actions based on impact, time and money, and as an educator, or some schools have used this with their eco committee, for instance, or had their students input into this as a learning tool, you can then choose what actions you would like to add to your action planner or mark them as completed if it's something you already do, or if it's not applicable to your school, mark that as such. And this is a really easy to use tool that's free, and that means that you can then have a tangible plan that you're using as a school to then, for instance, talk to your local authorities about, or to showcase the work that you're already doing. So this is a collaborative tool that that schools can use, but then can use to sort of show again what they're doing, where they're at, their journey towards sustainability. And we have been developing the functionality to add, so that schools can add their own actions. So it might be that within a specific locality there might be a specific thing that a local authority is encouraging schools to be thinking about, or a trust of schools is thinking about, actually we'd like to do this specific action, then they're able to add that to their plan. And similarly, they're able to add narrative to their plan. For instance, if they're doing a project that might take longer than a term or a year, they can add notes to track their progress throughout that action on their journey. We know it's not a sort of start and complete thing. This is an ongoing tool that schools can use depending on where they're at and what actions they're working on at a given time. So I'd really encourage you to have a look at the tool. It's free to use, so to access it you just go to the Transform Our World website and you are asked to register as a user, because we need to ask some details around those short set of questions like I mentioned at the start. So to be able to hold your data, we need to have you as a registered user, but it's free. You can mess around with the tool, you can create a prototype, we can then reset it. And if you'd like to learn more about the tool, how it works, please do get in touch. We also are very open to talking to local authorities about creating localized versions of the plan. So if you wanted to have a plan for a specific region or a group of schools, then please do get in touch. I'll put my email in the chat to talk about that as an option. But yeah, please do have a look at the website, and I'll pass over to Tony to talk about the UK School Sustainability Network.
Thank you, Bina. Hi everyone, my name is Tony and I work as Program Officer at Global Action Plan within the schools team. And one of the projects I work on is the UK School Sustainability Network. And this is essentially an umbrella network that brings together all the regional networks that exist within the UK. And these are consisting of students and staff who have come together to connect on projects, events, campaigns, essentially surrounding issues that they care about, and it being mainly youth-led and supported by staff and facilitated by school staff. So these are some of the regions that we are based in, and these are some of the established networks and some of the networks that are in the process of being set up. We also have sister networks in Ireland and Scotland, and we also have a few networks of staff. So we have an operations group, we have subject-specific groups and staff regional networks as well. We also have our mission statements and aims that are actually agreed on by students annually. So they're reviewed every year at the start of the academic term. And we try and ensure that, again, it's based on what the students want and believe. So how do the regional network models work? Essentially, each regional network is led or started by a teacher from a hub school. But most recently, we've had networks that are run by freelancers. We've had one that's started by a county council and also a zoo. So the regional networks will usually have a staff lead who organizes online and in-person activities. And then what happens is all the other schools that join the network, the staff from those schools will support the staff lead with running the network. Most of the networks are secondary, but we've recently had more networks that are starting up that are focused on primary schools, or they would have links with some of the secondary schools that already established a network. The projects and events, as mentioned before, are also student-led, and we try and ensure that all the staff that are involved try to support the students as much as possible, so that they don't feel overwhelmed. And then in terms of running the regional networks, each network has their own website. This can be on the UKSSN home website, or it can be like a separate website that links from the UKSSN website. So in case the regional networks want to have their own independent website, we just try and promote that as best as possible. In terms of social media, email communication, that's run at the regional network level as well. We also run the regional networks on MS Teams in terms of operations and communicating. So the regional networks will also run their own MS Teams channels. And then we tend to step in to help in whatever way we can. It might be myself or any other Global Action Plan staff member. So these are just some of the activities that the regional networks have gotten involved in the last couple of years. So like last year, we had the Ireland network set up their own and run their own media summit in November 2022. Some of the regional networks tend to run mock COPs because it's a good way to get the schools involved and the regional networks involved and engaged as well. Every year, the London network usually runs a fast fashion free campaign in February, and that's become a bit more popular as well within the other networks, just bringing awareness as well around fast fashion. So there's a variety of things that the students usually get involved in, and they have the freedom and leeway to sort of come up with ideas about the things they want to focus on. So I'm going to talk about the Chester School Sustainability Network because it's one of our regional networks that have been set up recently that are not actually set up by a school or a staff who a past teacher, current teacher. So this was set up by Chester Zoo this year in January 2023. So they already had prior links with students and keen on engaging more young people. So their approach was to actually engage schools by gaining senior leadership support, especially because they don't have direct access to students with not working in schools. So they decided to try and get buy-in from senior leadership, and they currently have 6 high schools that have signed up to the network. And actually, one of the first things that they did to try and get young people engaged within the schools was to try and do a logo design competition, and they had each of the schools submit a design for the network. And then what they did was they got 2 representatives from each of the schools, 2 student representatives, to actually decide on the winning logo, and this is what they came up with. And so my main point was basically that with our networks, as much as a lot of them are started by staff in schools or by one specific school that has an interest in becoming more environmental and sustainable, we've also had more precedent, and we're also keen to work with other local organizations that have links with schools. So we also have other councils that have links with schools or have decided to start a network. So we have the Northumberland County Council as well that started a network this year. So if any of you are interested in some of the regional networks that we work with currently or are established, these are just some of the ones that are there currently or in the process of being established. So if you're interested in linking with them or interested in starting your own, you can email us or get in touch with us via our website or via the email that is up on the slide. Thank you so much for listening. This is also our QR code in case you want to find out more information about us on our socials or on our website. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Bina and Tony. And if you do have any questions for them, please drop them in the chat, and I will try to ask them after Henry speaks. And then if we don't get around to all the questions, again, I will do a follow-up email and we'll answer all your questions in that. So I'd like to invite Henry to come and speak from the Green Schools Project about what they offer schools and how they can work with local authorities.
Great. Thanks, Suzanne, and hi everyone. I will just share my screen there, and I've got a 5-minute slot, but I'm going to use about half of it to show a little video because it shows some of the children working on our programme. So hopefully they can articulate it better than I can. So I'll show this and then I'll explain a little bit more afterwards. Just to check, can people hear that?
No, we can't say anything yet.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Excuse me. Sorry, I think I've. Oops. Let's just redo this share. Sorry, I think I've done that wrong. Include system audio. There we go. Okay, can you see that now?
Yeah.
And hopefully this should work now.
You went back to school today, didn't you? Every day's a school day for me. But yes, I met a very nice man called Henry Greenwood and the kids at Bentham Primary, and he's so concerned about climate change, he decided to do something about it, to go into schools, to teach them about carbon footprint and try and get them to find the solution. So in the latest in our series, From Climate Warrior to Climate Warrior, here is Henry and the kids in Bentham.
School has long been a home for daydreamers, but it's not always just the students. Henry Greenwood was a teacher who dreamed of helping children help their schools help the planet. Now he's very much making that dream a reality.
We could be doing harm to ourselves as well if we don't look after the environment.
So I was a secondary school maths teacher, working in a school in Enfield, and just looked around the school and saw that such little was being done to raise awareness about climate change.
Henry started to change his school, but it wasn't enough, and soon he quit teaching to set up the Greener Schools project.
My back is up against a lovely warm radiator here. Is that a problem for the carbon footprint?
Yeah, because this is using energy.
Bentham Primary in Hackney is one of dozens of schools benefiting. The project is unique in that it teaches the kids to calculate their school's carbon footprint.
We're working out the inverse for 256 and 880.
Smart kids, and they're about to find out the results.
At least if we know it, then we know that what we can do to reduce it.
Knowledge is power, isn't it? Okay, well, good luck.
It turns out the school needs to work on emissions from energy and food, and it's the kids who'll come up with the solutions.
Maybe we could hold like a competition, and the healthiest meal that's really good for the planet, the top 3 would become part of the school menu.
Perfect, that's a great idea. Everyone loves the competition, don't they? Yes. You've already fulfilled one dream. What's the big dream, the goal now?
We would love to see this as kind of as standard for schools, for every school to measure their carbon footprint.
Climate change can seem overwhelming, but Henry and these kids are showing that solutions can be found and the problem can be solved.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully that kind of brings it to life a little bit. Just to give it a very brief bit of context. So the Zero Carbon Schools programme is something that Green Schools Project set up a couple of years ago. So it's still quite new and we're developing it, but essentially it revolves around a series of pupil sessions which run throughout the majority of the school year, from sort of after October half term until the end of the school year, where they explore what is climate change, the causes and the impacts around the world, investigate their school's carbon footprint in the areas of energy, food, travel and purchasing. As you can see on the screen, there's a little kind of poster there which we collect a bit of data from the school and turn that into a school carbon footprint, and we've got a sort of a red, amber, green rating in comparison to other schools that are participating on the programme. Then the children actually design and lead projects in the ACT stage, and then there's a few sessions at the end where they try and inspire the rest of the school community to get involved and take the message to parents as well. To support teachers along this teachers actually deliver the programme themselves. We've got half-termly online sessions to support delivery, and so that they can kind of share good practice amongst themselves as well. In addition to the pupil aspect of it, there are 2 teacher training sessions included in the programme. So again, we provide the materials and the resources for teachers to actually deliver a teacher training session to all the school staff on how the staff can get involved in reducing the carbon footprint, but also importantly how to incorporate climate and nature into lessons for all year groups and in different subject areas. And then finally there's an support to kind of involve and inform the local community. The video showed a primary school, so we work with primary schools, kind of it's so the upper age range of primary schools, year 4, 5, 6, but we also do work with secondary schools. Getting these sessions into the curriculum in secondary schools is much more challenging, so often we work with eco teams in secondary schools, or sometimes secondary schools do it as a kind of with an SEND group. To kind of which have a bit more flexibility with the curriculum. So yeah, we started a couple of years ago with just a pilot of 4 schools. We've got to 87 this year, and 150 is our target for next year. And in terms of working with local authorities, it's great to see a few familiar faces, familiar names on the list of attendees. We are increasing our work with local authorities and hoping to work kind of more closely with them. Obviously we provide this programme for free for schools, but we need to find our funding from somewhere. So, you know, we're a small organisation, so our kind of recruitment capacity is finite, but if local authorities do like the sound of this and would like a group of their schools to run it and to get involved, we're looking to work in partnership where some funding is provided in order to kind of get a group of schools together. So that's happening this year. We're recruiting at the moment in Newham, Manchester. I saw Sarah from Solihull as well. They're kind of looking into the possibility of this, and there's 1 or 2 others as well. So please do just get in touch if you're interested in that. That's our kind of email address and website, and I'm sure contact details will be shared after this as well. So yeah, hope we can kind of expand and work with some more of you.
Brilliant, thanks so much, Henry. And yeah, as you say, the video really does bring it to life with the students talking. So if anyone does have any questions for now, I'm just trying to look through the chat box for either Henry or Bina or Tony. Please do drop them in the chat box. Of course, we will share this recording round with everybody with all the useful links and presentations for you to all look at and reflect on. But let me have a quick look. I know lots of people have been answering questions already in the chat. I think I saw one question come in for Bina or Tony, which is the Transform Our World resources. Are they accessible to local authorities? Can they log on and have a look at what's available?
Yeah, so everything on the website is completely free, and to download resources or access resources, you don't even have to register. So there shouldn't be any sort of accessibility issues, and please do download, share them. They're usually linked to our partners pages. A lot of our resources are from other organisations who are doing work in this space. And likewise, if you know of any organisations or you yourselves have developed any resources that you'd like to feature on Transform Our World, again, that's free of charge if you'd like them to feature on that so other people could share them and collaborate with them. Let us know similarly.
Brilliant, thank you. And Henry, a specific question for you is in terms of where you're based. Obviously, you said you're working in Manchester, but then also in London. So is it quite easy for you to work with all schools?
Yeah. So I was just typing a message into the chat about that actually, but yeah, we're based in North East London in Waltham Forest, and are working with the local authority here as well. But because our main programme is online, it's accessible to schools all around the country. So we've got an academy trust based in Cornwall who are kind of signing up all their schools next year, as well as we're working with schools in the North East as well. So yeah, we're open to working all around the country.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Henry, Bina and Tony for presenting and sharing about your work with schools and how you support them.